Good afternoon and welcome to another Tag Talks, where we talk all about pretty cool HR topics here in our Army and for the Adjutant General and here at HRC. This episode, which is number 4 of Season 2, is going to focus primarily on promotion boards and evaluation boards and the record briefs that go in those boards, etc. And so today we have two pretty outstanding superstars that work in the boardroom, and we'll get to that in a minute. What does that mean, working in the boardroom here at the Human Resources Command? But Captain Sean Truck, and I'm not going to try and destroy your last name, Sean, but Sean is with us, and then also Captain Adrian Halland. So both superstars. They tell me they were at Fort Hood, stationed First Cav, and doing stuff in their past. But why don't you talk a little bit about yourself, Sean, and then we'll get into the topic today.
Well, good morning, sir, and good morning to everybody that's listening. My name is Captain Sean Trzynskis. I'm an armor officer by trade, working down now in the DA Secretariat, just coming out of command. I've been here at HRC for about 8 months, and just learning and understanding a lot of these systems, and I'm happy to be here this morning to talk about some big changes that are coming down the pipe.
Yeah, awesome. So armor guy in the boardroom, how'd that happen?
Well, sir, long winding road as it usually is in the Army.
Yeah.
I was geared up for a triple C slot as a small group leader, and then that changed. Wound up looking like OC with the Cobra team out at NTC, and then Branch reached out and said, "Hey, we have an opportunity to have an armor guy representing us down in the DA Secretariat. Do you want to do the job?" And I said, "What's the DA Secretariat?" And yes, I'll do the job. And it worked out perfectly. So I'm here now and learning about a whole different side of the Army that I haven't had experience with before, and it's a really good thing.
Yeah, no, I think we're lucky to have you, and the different flavors of branches bring, I think, a pretty good differentiating experience level into executing boards for the Army, and that's essentially what the Secretariat does. It executes all of those promotion and evaluation boards for our Army, and we like to have a broad representation of folks working to make sure that we kind of cover all angles. So awesome. Okay, armor guy in the boardroom. And then Adrian, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Good morning. I'm Captain Adrian Halland. I am an AG officer by trade. I was 10 years prior enlisted as an AG soldier and decided to stick with what I know, and I'm now an AG officer. I got to the DA Secretariat in June. So I've been there for about 7-8 months. Prior to that, I was at Fort Hood. I did several things there as a deputy SGS at First Cav, which Captain Truck and I were in First Cav together. And then I was the 3-Corps strength manager, a Brigade S1, a Battalion S1, ran the gamut of AG at Fort Hood, and then came here.
Yeah, awesome. And I know you in a previous life, right? Once upon a time at First Cav, but it was Sergeant Halland. And we deployed, right, in the middle of the Iraq War. So, yeah, great to have you on the team as well. So the topic today is we probably can couch it around the MILPER we just published, right? So we published a MILPER message 23-055. Sounds really formal, but it's all about record briefs moving forward and what's going to be used in boards. And of course, it's linked to the rollout of IPSA. So maybe we talk a little bit about what that MILPER is and why is it of noteworthy mention in a tag talk.
So to start us off, sir, agreed. So what does that MILPER mean? Why you should read it? How it affects what we do down in the DA Secretariat, and what soldiers, troopers, and officers and enlisted, both sides, can do going forward. Biggest thing to start off right from the get-go with what is the DA Secretariat, and then how does this MILPER feed into what we're doing down in the basement of HRC, as we like to say. So DA Sec is the organization that runs all the promotion evaluations and school boards, to include GO boards within the Army. We as board recorders are there to monitor and ensure that the board members comply with law, policy, and the MOIs that come from higher. And in this case, this can be the Chief of Staff of the Army, or the Secretary of the Army in writing those MOIs through the assorted organizations. And I'm sure Adrian will pick up on where I leave off. We do about 120 boards and panels every fiscal year, and this runs the gamut from enlisted all through GO. So the bottom line up front is that we ensure that those boards go off without a hitch. They comply with all those things that I talked about earlier, and that every candidate is given a fair opportunity when their boards come up for whatever they might be seen as or being seen for. What did I miss, Adrian?
Well, I kind of have a colloquial, kind of anecdotal way to think about what we do, sir. So just to dispel any rumors. So I think of the DA Secretariat like your local voting, like polling station. So the pollsters that work there don't decide what goes on the ballot. They don't decide who gets to vote. They're there to make sure that what is on the ballot can be voted, that the systems are working properly, and that we're following the law and policy as outlined either by statute, policy, or the instructions from the MOI. And so that's how I think of what we do. We don't decide who votes, so we don't decide who the voting members are. We don't decide who gets voted. Those are all different proponents, and we're just there to make sure that they can do it and that the integrity of the board process is followed.
Yeah, and that's the main role of the board recorders, to kind of facilitate that. You know, obviously when you're leading up to a board, like for instance in April there'll be a captain selection board, right? And there's a MILPER that's dropped that kind of says, hey, this is everybody that's eligible, here's all what folks need to do to think about their records and all of that. And then you're inside of that, right, board, just helping the folks that sit and then essentially vote files, which gets us to lists that then ties to the folks that get promoted over time. And it's you know, it's a little different on the NCO side, but roughly that's kind of how it rolls, right? You do a MILPER up front that highlights folks, and then you're helping the folks that sit on the board that actually do this.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So with the record brief, as we're talking about the new MILPER, the first thing to note is that the record brief is not a source document. Your IPERMS is your source document. And so as Captain Truck's going to go through all of the phases, because that was really his approach. I think it was a smart approach to talk about it in phases. But it's always important, and it's always our foot stomp in the DA Sec when we do LPDs, is that we brief, that the record brief is like a guide rail for our board members to go through your file, but it is not a source document. And this MILPER outlines that as well. So Truck, I can pass it over to you to talk about the phases.
Yeah, and I'm just going to highlight again, right?
Yes,
We're talking 23055, right? So that's essentially HQDA Centralized Promotion Board guidance for record briefs during FY23 and IPSA implementation. And you know, I guess the reason, and I'll foot stomp it here, hey, so IPSA goes live. IPSA does some different things for the Army. And what we also see on the side is some of the older legacy HR systems, they go away. So a system called eMilpo went away that had something called the Soldier Record Brief inside it. And then a bunch of other systems go away. And so as you go into promotion boards, traditionally you're using that record brief from legacy systems. But since those older systems went away and now we have IPSA, we're going to transition to using a couple of different things over FY23. So, Sean, you want to talk a little bit about the MILPER?
Yes, sir. So coming right to the first phase. So one of four phases. And I don't want to sound like I'm briefing in op order, so I'm not going to start with the
It's
scheme.
okay. It's why we have an armor officer in the VA Secretariat.
But as you said, sir, that first phase is predominantly the phasing out of the legacy systems and how that affects boards going forward. So up until from now until about the March 2023 time frame will be when we're still using archived SRBs for each of the boards that are listed out in the MILPER. Now, what does that mean for soldiers down on the line? The bottom line up front is that you can still view this SRB in the system, but you cannot affect change to it. Another item to keep in mind is update your iPerms. iPerms has not changed and it's not gone away. Everything, as Adrian said earlier, is based off of your iPerms soldier profile. So that record brief is still a guideline. It's like hand railing onto an objective. It's not the source document for board members when they're going through. It sits on the screen to their right-hand side for the most part, and they use that just to identify points of interest. So as long as you are taking that time to review and certify your profile before that board comes up, then you are at a 99% solution already. If there are issues, again, as stated in the inside of the MILPER message, then look at your board, that individual board's MILPER, and follow the instructions to write your board president or get in touch with that proponent that's executing your board in order to update any information that might be erroneous or missing. So it sounds pretty scary, but again, that bottom line foot stomp thing is just update your iPerms, certify that board profile, and you will be okay for your boards going forward. The IPSA conversion has not had a negative impact on the boards that we've executed so far. The one that I just sat on, of which I can't really get into too much detail on, went very smooth, even with archived SRBs. Yes, there were questions from the board members, but again, as stated in the MILPER, is we brief each of the board members several times with the same phrase to not hold these missing pieces of information against the soldier. The benefit of the doubt always goes to the soldier being seen. So if there's any heartburn or negative feelings on that, I can guarantee you, even as a layman coming into this job, that the board process is fair and balanced, and that at each step, board members are notified and made sure that that benefit of the doubt goes to the soldier. Did I miss anything in there?
Well, there's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah.
Up front, I mean, it probably is good for folks to read this MILPER in particular.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, because it really just walks through, I think, systematically some of the nuances and changes. So, for instance, the comment on, hey, we're briefing folks that are sitting boards about this nuance with system transfer and data transfer and what's happening. I think that this is like we got your back, folks, right? Out in the field, like we're letting folks know that this thing took place. So there's probably going to be some things that you might see on this record brief in the file, but just keep that in consideration. That we just went through a monumental transfer to get IPSA online. So I think that's one. The other is, iPerms. So a little bit of a rumor out there. Folks were downloading their iPerms, complete files. They thought it was going to go away as IPSA came online. Well, that was kind of false. iPerms is staying forever. Your record is safe and sound inside of iPerms. So if that record is up to date, that's really what's helping feed your board file inside of whatever promotion board or evaluation board that we're talking about. So that was good, good point there that I think you made, Sean. That hey, that's in play, and that's going to be tied to your board file. And then over time, right, we're gonna shift some stuff. So I don't know, Adrian, you want to keep talking about this MILPER?
Yes, sir. So I think Sean brings up a good point about what this MILPER is about, why it's important. As an AG officer, this is really a MILPER unlike a lot of others. There's not a board MILPER out there that says, hey, we're briefing this to the board. And so if there's one key takeaway, read these 4 pages word for word, particularly if you have a board coming up in any of those phases. But the part where we talk about what's being briefed is important and it's different, and hopefully that helps the force feel like they're getting a fair shake in that board. And so as we move into phase 2, which starts in April of 2023, it will switch to an IPSA replicated record brief. So it will look like the record brief that everybody knows, but it will be fed real time with IPSA data. So that foot stomp is to everyone: get into IPSA, start updating your information, get into iPerms, start updating that information now, because phase 2 goes from April of 2023 to June of 2023. Then in June of 2023, we tag on the Soldier Talent Profile, or STP, not to be confused with the band, into the board file. And so you can start going in and updating that now. And that's where you have your self-professed KSBs. And so for officers and warrant officers who are familiar with the AIM-2 resume, very similar. Some of that did transfer. Some of that for mine did transfer. I went in and looked at it yesterday, and a lot of what I had on my resume for the hiring process was in my Soldier Talent Profile. If you click on the Soldier Talent Profile, that's not where you can update it. That just gives you, it's kind of like looking at your AIM-2 resume. I'm trying to visualize the buttons. I want to say it's the last row of buttons in self-service, the second one from the right. I want to say it's TAM, like talent management. You go in there and you go to my profile, and then you can get into your KSBs where you can start self-professing. So the most important thing anyone can do right now, make sure iPerms is straight. If it's not, get those documents uploaded with your S1s. S1s can absolutely still send stuff to iPerms for you. Next, get into IPS, start updating your information, both with your S1 for things that are incorrect, and make sure that data is reflected correctly. And then for yourself, just the same way you would do an AIM-2 resume, get in and start doing that for your STP, because that then comes online in June of 2023. And that will stay until time to be determined in FY24, as all the systems are now up online to include a new voting system. So our voting system is called the Army Selection Board System, or ASBS, and there's a new version of that down the line. So as that comes online, that's when we'll sunset the record brief that's in IPSA that replicates the TOPMIS EMIL-PO 1, and that STP will get rolled into that system.
Perfect, Adrian. And what I'd like to segue off of that is the so what factor for our guys on the line. It's commanders, platoon leaders, section sergeants, anybody in a leadership role need to start thinking about how they can institute this into their battle rhythm events. So for commanders during their admin days, I know that for a lot of us out there, white space is an extremely rare commodity. Having just stepped out of that, I can empathize dearly. But where we can start looking out for our troopers is that, hey, during those admin days, during our counseling sessions, we need to start getting our junior leaders involved with getting IPSA off the ground in these STPs. So your NCOs can have a huge impact on setting the pace for how we're executing this Army-wide. So take the time to sit there, think, work with your lieutenants. If you're a troop commander, is kind of my example, is sit down with yourselves, go through IPSA. Even for somebody as simple as me, I managed to get on there and was able to start working through a lot of these KSBs, and you can also download it through the app, which, again, welcome to the modern age for the Army, finally 20 years after apps have been out. But it's a phenomenal tool to be able to rapidly do even hip pocket training. So if you're that team leader is sitting there waiting to get on the plane for another RAF mission or something like that, then they can take that 15 minutes and say, hey, Private Joe Snuffy, let me see your STP on your phone. And then they can check those KSBs and see if it's actually been executed. And then you can apply that at echelon. So again, as a commander, you can check that against you, your first sergeant, your lieutenants as you're doing your counseling sessions, which I know we don't always sometimes get to, regardless of what regulation says. But we can do, those are avenues of attack, so to speak, for getting after setting our soldiers up for success, especially during this transitional phase. Because we as leaders understand that, hey, where's the biggest point of danger? It's at the transitions, right? And that's exactly where we're at when it comes to our HR systems. And if you're not being proactive in assisting yourselves or your troopers get there, then you're failing them in the end, just like how we have folks that still haven't written AIM resumes for jobs coming up. And we know that senior leaders look at that stuff. So
Yeah.
I would just throw that out as options. Sir,
Yeah,
for
no, I think that's a fantastic point. I mean, we are right in the middle of a transition, right? As we bring IPSA online and we kind of force everybody to start using it. And you mentioned that everybody can download the app and you can put it on your personal mobile device. So you can get it out of the Apple Store. If you have that other phone, you can get it out of that store. And then you can get it on the TRADOC App Store too if you wanted to. But you know, that is meant to put that ability of a soldier and NCO to see everything for themselves and their personnel file and then their pay file on their phone, including the soldier talent profile. And Adrian, that's like plus 10. You know, you found a way to throw in the Stone Temple pilots in a brief about board record briefs. So that's like plus 10 for you. You know, Sean, you got some work to do. But you know, that's just it's such an exciting thing. And then you know the key difference, right? So old legacy HR systems, the only people that could tell us about their knowledge, skills, and behaviors and preferences was the officers for the most part. There's a little bit on the NCO side about preferences and where you really wanted to go. But now we're opening it up for the entire Army. Hey, tell us your skills. You know, soldiers, tell us your skills, put it in your profile. It'll end up on your soldier talent profile. We're going to be able to use that long term in the Army. So that's an exciting piece. But back to this MILPER, right? Back to this MILPER. We're in that transition phase, which is there's always risk, right? There's always work to do. And if you're familiar with software programs and data transfers, right? All of that is always hard. And there's always some little glitches and blips here and there. It's why we're being so transparent. It's why we put this MILPER out. It's why we're telling the force why we're doing it, and then also how we're telling the board members to think about, right, some interesting things they may see in soldiers' records. Or on this board record brief as we make this transition. So it's a very deliberate attempt on our part to make sure folks understand and so we can have a dialogue as we go. And then, you know, I'm really excited as we get through 23 and you move into 24. You get more data out of IPSA, you get more understanding of soldiers' talents and whatnot. And then you got all of that in the board helping us select our very best for promotion as we move forward. So pretty cool.
Yes, sir. And then that ties to phase 3, right? So that will be the inclusion of the IPSA record brief and the soldier talent profile. And as Adrian stated before, this will bring us from June of 2023 into a time to be determined in 2024. And the two biggest things that kind of happen during this phase is the institution of the STP and, as Adrian alluded to earlier, the ASBS 2.0 dashboard that goes into effect. Now, the reason why this is important, and it gets after the things that you were talking about, sir, is that it provides more information for us and for the board members when looking at those candidates. So instead of just what everybody has heard of on the line as, hey, they're going to look at your last 4 to 5 OERs, and then that's really about it because they only have 2 minutes. Well, to dismiss that myth, the board members have access to your complete HIPERMS data. Everything that's on your AMHR, they can see. And so what we're doing is by giving soldiers and officers an opportunity to influence that STP and what those skills look like through the different tiers of KSBs and what leads to those KSPs through those tiers. That then influences the ASBS 2.0 system, which will then allow those board members to access information in a more fluid manner. Now, obviously, at this point in time, that's still something that's being created. We don't have an end product yet, but just the opportunity for board members to rapidly be able to see and access different facets of the holistic soldier is a definite step up and improvement.
And I think it's important to note, and it is in the MILPER, we've broken it down by compo. So what compo? So active component we're using up until the end of March 2023. Active component, National Guard, we're using those legacy record briefs. Compo 3, reserve component, using RCMS. And then as we move into phase 2, Compo 1, 2, and 3 are all the same. And then that goes on past there, that then the compos, the Army National Guard, active component, and reserve are all using the same system. But what we can promise is that what is being shown to a board will be transparent to the soldier going to the board. So your My Board file will reflect these changes. There will not, it won't be a legacy ORB or SRB in your file as we're going to the IPSA. We have a team of technicians who are amazing. They're so excellent. But your My Board file will reflect as the phases go. So it won't be a surprise to you. And that's just kind of to let everyone know, we really at the DA Secretariat and NPAG-D, we advocate for soldiers and for that transparency. And then sure, your soldier talent profile has your picture and your marital status and your dependents and all of that, but statute dictates now that those are not shown, and so those things will get flushed out and approved and all of that. But what will be shown to the board will be shown to the soldier going to the board before. So when they certify that My Board file, that's knowing that that is what the board is going to see, and it will not change.
Yeah, just another plug. You know, MILPER lays it all out pretty cleanly in phases. So I think it's just a good read to understand, you know, hey, over FY23, this is really what's going to be in those particular boards, and we've identified the particular boards that are in each phase. So very cleanly. You know, again, IPSA, so everybody's in IPSA, every soldier, every compo. So that's the first time the Army has ever had a system where everybody's in the same system. And so part of that transition is we're getting everybody to use the system now of record that's for the whole Army, which is IPSA. So we're moving off the legacy different systems. We're going to use ultimately IPSA to drive all HR, all assignments. And then really the part for the force is you got to start using IPSA. So yeah, if you haven't downloaded the app, go download the app. If you haven't looked at your profile, hey, go look at your profile. If you haven't started to update some of that information, go update that information. And that's all 3 compos, because this is what we're going to use moving forward. It is really the bedrock of talent management for the Army moving forward. And I'm excited because I really want to see the talents of all of our soldiers. You know, hey, it's cool that I can see you active duty officers' talents on the resume, but I'm really interested in seeing all that data, all that talent that's in the Army. You know, a couple other important things. Hey, I love that you said it too, right? In the tag, we really care about soldiers. You know, it's about taking care of people, and that's what this team is being so transparent for, is to really set the stage for folks to understand what's happening in 23, and then so folks can put their best foot forward as they go to boards. So that's pretty awesome. Anyway, we're about at our time. So any parting shots, Sean?
Well, sir, the only thing I'll add is that, as you kind of were broaching, is the STP is a living document. So it's not just something to look at once and then go away from. So much like how you try to certify your board files, you want to keep that up through annual looks, things like that. You also want to ensure that you're looking at that STP, probably, at a minimum quarterly. And again, you can tie that to
That's
your
great advice.
your counseling sessions. So again, ways to execute it at just the line level where it's not this monumental thing. It's hey, take a deliberate approach, plan the plan, add it to your battle rhythm events, and you can start chipping away and then being proactive during that transition. And that's all I'll add to that.
Yeah,
sir.
fantastic, Sean.
I know, Sarah, I know you've said this before, but there are all sorts of things that people do that are hidden talents or hobbies. But to piggyback on what Sean said, doing that quarterly is important because somewhere there's a Captain Adrian Holland who got told that I need to find the thing that does the thing in this formation, find that today. And the way that we do that now with IPSE and not email po data store is to start running data queries to find that one unique person that we wouldn't have been able to see on your ORB. So that's really important. Shameless plug for the DA Secretariat. You can hit up our website at HRC. You can request an LPD with us. You can either pay for a certified board recorder to come out. We'll give you our once around the world of what we do in the DA Secretariat, and we'll field any questions. If you're here at HRC, you can request it in person, and we also do a mock voting then where we gin up some mock board files, and you actually get to go in and vote the files, so it's a really great opportunity for people visiting. There's a brand new video. Two of our board recorders, Major Liz Doyle and Captain Brandon Sykes, just re-recorded our mock board video that's shown to all board members. So certainly you can watch that. We also give them on Teams, and then we have a Facebook page called the My Board File. And a hit on me is, as an AG officer, I didn't even know that existed. And so what I've been doing recently is letting people know, like everyone that I know, hey, I didn't know that DA Secretariat did LPDs. Bad on me. But we do, and let's give you one.
Half the battle.
And then two is there's a Facebook page called My Board File, and there are people in our office that answer and respond to your questions every day. And I can't say enough good things about the civilians that work in the DA Secretariat. They are so diligent, and they care so much about making sure that the right thing gets seen by the board and that we're doing the most we can for soldiers.
Yeah, a commitment by us to answer those posts on Facebook. So the My Board Files, in particular, tied to the Secretariat and the boardroom and ops. The LPD that was recorded about the board process is really good and eye-opening. So if you only heard the myths and the legends, right? This kind of gets after what's going on in the board, so that's highly recommended for anybody out there to take a look at. And then obviously I got to plug the Adjutant General's Facebook page. We have really become active on posting what's going on with IPSE support, what's going on with promotions, and everything else in the HR sphere on that page, and we're very committed to interacting with folks that are asking questions. Or maybe not always asking questions, but posting certain comments, because that's part of our transition here is we're focused on taking care of people. So excited to interact with you, and thanks for you two coming on and talking through this change. It's a big change, but IPSE is a big change. And all I'd ask that folks out there is just continue to lean into it. We'll get through the bumpy patches that we've seen with IPS over the last couple of months, but hey, it's here to stay. So hey, I'm Tag 63 signing out. Thanks, folks.